Sunday Ticket. Big week for the Sunday Ticket case. I continue to read the transcript. I'm getting there. Got about 700 pages left. I am getting there. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. 1,700 plus pages down, 700 pages to go. A lot of interesting stuff. I'm doing typically day-by-day updates, witness-by-witness updates, development-by-development updates at PFT. And look, it's funny. Some will say nobody cares about this. I see the traffic. There's a lot of people who care because two reasons. One, the case was horribly covered by all of us in the media. I regret not being there for the whole trial, although that would have meant a month in LA, which I continue to say, I'm far better off for not having spent a month in LA. But getting the whole transcript and having a chance to read it and digest it and understand it and break it down and see what was happening. I got a lot I could say about the Sunday Ticket case, and I've said a lot already. Let's just say this for now. Big week coming, because on Wednesday, this is when the parties go back to court on the NFL's request to throw the whole verdict out. And one of the things that was covered pretty thoroughly as a result of some nudging from the NFL, because the only time I've heard from the NFL throughout the entirety of the proceedings, heard from them spontaneously, was something they thought I might want to know about. It was when the judge, and this happened on Tuesday morning, June 18, when the judge was making in open court without the jury present some pejorative comments about the quality of the plaintiff's case. Joe Flint from the Wall Street Journal was tweeting some things, and the league made sure that I was aware that there's some tweets from Mr. Flint that you might be interested in. And the AP, I think, eventually had an article about it. And it was a pretty gloomy day for the plaintiffs because the judge went off on their case. And you really got the impression the judge was teetering on this question of whether or not he should just throw the whole case out. And part of it was he was venting frustration because the plaintiffs had made it too complicated. Now, here's how that happens. And this is based on my 19 years of experience practicing law. What happens is, in a case like this, the defense, which is being paid by the hour and has every incentive to work the case, work the file, grind it, bill it. I've said this before. Every major law firm wants to find cost-insensitive clients. You want to have people with a lot of money and a big problem, and they're not going to micromanage your bill. They're not going to ask you, why did this take an hour? Why did this take 3 hours? Why did you do this? Why did you do that? They're just going to pay it when it comes in. And the NFL, big problem with Sunday Ticket, they're going to pay these bills. And the defense has an incentive to work the case. And they over-lawyer the case. One of the reasons they over-lawyer the case is they never want the one approach they didn't follow to be the thing that in hindsight their colleagues say, well, that's kind of why you lost the case. Why didn't you argue this? Oh, did you argue that? Oh, you didn't. Oh, okay. So the defense over-lawyers the case. They throw everything they can at the wall in hopes of something sticking. What the plaintiffs need to do in that case is resist the temptation to respond. You don't have to take on every single argument. You don't have to overcomplicate the case. You can stay on the path of clarity and simplicity and let the defense spin their wheels in all these other forms of mud aimed at confusing the jury. The judge got upset with the plaintiffs because they were overcomplicating a simple case. It's a simple case. 32 teams coming together, working under the umbrella of the NFL, took the Sunday Ticket package and deliberately overpriced it so that people would choose to watch CBS and Fox instead, propping up and justifying the billions they were getting from CBS and Fox. So you get billions from DirecTV for Sunday Ticket, billions from CBS and Fox. The CBS and Fox contracts, you have an antitrust exemption. Since 1961, the NFL has been permitted to sell its games as a block to the over-the-air broadcast networks. But that doesn't apply to Sunday Ticket. So you do it with CBS and Fox, fine. You do it with Sunday Ticket, not fine. You ensure that it's a premium product, a complimentary product, and you've got tons of evidence that CBS and Fox hated Sunday Ticket because it undermined their ratings. So we price it high enough, Most people just watch the games that are available in their local markets, even if they'd rather watch out-of-market games. Antitrust violation, case over. The challenge to this case was coming up with what the damages are, the but-for world that they call it in antitrust law. If there hadn't been this violation of the antitrust laws, how much would Sunday Ticket have cost? How much could it have cost? How much should it have cost? And that's where the judge expressed some serious misgivings about the two expert witnesses that the plaintiffs called who created this but-for world. And when you look at the coverage of what the judge said, when you look at the transcript of what the judge said, it makes it more likely that now that it's on his desk, this request by the league to throw the whole thing out, more likely that he will. Gives the NFL a pretty good chance of turning 14.1 into 0. However, and this is the benefit of both writing a fairly large check for the transcript and reading every single page of it, this wasn't in the coverage that we saw from the AP or others who managed to generate articles about the day that the judge went a little bonkos and threatened to throw the whole case out. The plaintiffs managed to talk the judge off the ledge. There's an exchange there, and I'll be writing about this at PFT. After the judge vented his frustrations, his case is taking too long, too many of these witness testimonies are coming off like deposition transcripts where you're just fishing for anything. It's not tight, it's not clean, it's not simple, it's taking too long. This is a simple case. We all know what the case is about. Why is this taking so long? That was the judge's frustration. After he kind of let all that out, that's when one of the lawyers for the plaintiffs got him to understand what the case is about, got him to understand why it's been complicated, got him to understand what they're really arguing and why it's so challenging. When one side has committed an antitrust violation, in the reality that we know, why it's so hard to create an alternate universe where the antitrust violation had never happened. So when you look at everything that transpired that day, we only got one side of it in the coverage that was made available to us. The other side of it is the plaintiffs did a nice job of getting the judge under control. So as we go into the hearing on Wednesday, it's not quite the same minefield for the plaintiffs that it seemed to be based upon the coverage that we saw at the time. And you throw on top of it the $14.1 billion judgment coming from the $4.7 billion verdict. Because one of the things the judge said is, I don't know what these people are going to do. Well, they spoke loudly, and that can't be ignored. And judges ultimately respect the verdict issued by a jury. The NFL's latest submission calls it nonsensical. The judge isn't going to call it nonsensical. Judges don't like to take away jury verdicts. Judges don't like to disrespect the work of average citizens who came in and gave a month of their lives to trying to figure this out. And the judge saw the antitrust violation from the get-go. Again, some of the comments he made on the day that he vented his frustrations suggest that going into the case, he thought it was a winner for the plaintiffs. He just didn't like the way they went about presenting the case. But by the end of that day, by the end of that exchange, he was starting to come around to why the plaintiffs did what they did. So huge week coming up. We won't get a ruling this week unless the judge would rule from the bench, which is very unusual. And it only happens in the clearest of cases. Chances are there will be a written ruling that comes out weeks after the fact. But what happens in court on Wednesday, the way the judge presents himself, the questions he asks, the things he says, that may give us a pretty strong clue as to which way he's going. Which is why I did give serious thought to flying out to LA and attending the hearing. It's just hard to balance because training camps are open. There's a lot going on. I want to be able to do PFTPM. I don't want to go to LA again until the Super Bowl is back there, and I have to. So I'd love to be there for it. And I'm trying to think of other ways to get it covered. Miles Simmons might get the short straw since he lives out there. He might just go there with his phone. And that's like, I want eyes and ears. I want him to observe. I want to get his impressions. And it's kind of good that he's not covering the case. He goes in fresh. Hey, what vibe did you get from the judge? What vibe did you get from the lawyers? Were you able to record the hearing? He might go. I don't think he wants to, but he might go. That's what the money is for, as he would say. One of the great quotes from one of the all-time great series. Underrated, I think, in the grand scheme of things. When you talk about the pantheon of great shows, Mad Men doesn't get the treatment that maybe it should. So, bottom line, we're continuing our review of the Sunday Ticket transcript. This is a big week for it. You want to read some of the entries we have at PFT about the Jerry Jones testimony, the Roger Goodell testimony, and also the little nugget of news that came from the testimony of Kathy Yancey, one of the VPs at the NFL who's responsible for working with the networks and ensuring compliance with the league standards this year. Coaches, mandatory availability during the game, one in the first half, one in the second half, mandatory. In the past, it's been optional, and it's been on the way to the locker room or back from the locker room at halftime. Now, on camera, mandatory. Really makes me wish Bill Belichick was still in the NFL, because I think he'd find a way. To comply without complying, even if it included borrowing a phrase from Marshawn Lynch and saying, I'm just here so I won't get fined. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.